Rain hammered the narrow dirt road. Mud clung to my shoes. I could barely see through the sheets of water, but I knew someone was following me. Every step echoed. Every snapped twig made me jump. I turned, heart thudding, but there was nothing. Just the fog rolling over the low hills, swallowing the small village in a gray haze. I reached the edge of the old bridge. My hands shook. The wooden planks creaked under my weight. Then I heard it a whisper. Low, sharp, almost laughing. Someone knew. Someone had seen everything. My breath came in short, ragged gasps. The wind carried a scent of wet earth and smoke. Someone was burning something important. And I knew if I didn't act now, it would be too late. The light from the lantern at the corner of the street flickered, then went out. Darkness swallowed me. My mind raced. Should I run? Hide? Or confront whoever was out there, waiting? I took a step forward and froze. Because in the distance, through the rain and mist, I saw her. Standing there, calm, smiling. But her eyes told me I had crossed a line that could never be undone. How far had she really been watching me? This all started on a quiet morning in our little village, where the mist always lingered over the fields, and the smell of wet soil mixed with wood smoke. The rooster crowed as it had every day for decades, and the sun struggled to pierce through the clouds above the hills. I was sitting on the creaking wooden bench outside our small cottage, sipping tea from a chipped mug, watching my neighbors go about their routines. Old Mr. Rana was tending to his chickens, humming a tune he'd probably been singing since before I was born. The children ran barefoot along the narrow paths, their laughter echoing against the stone walls and low fences. Even the river, usually just a lazy stream winding through the village, seemed content as it gurgled past the banks. Everything had its rhythm. Everything was familiar. My sister Mira appeared at the door, her basket full of freshly picked herbs and vegetables. "Tea's getting cold," she said, smiling. Her hair was tied back in the same messy braid she had worn since childhood. We exchanged a quiet laugh over some shared memory, the kind that only grows warmer with time. Life, in its simplicity, felt safe. Yet even in the calm, there were small cracks that went unnoticed at first. I noticed how some villagers would glance at one another and whisper, a slight unease in their eyes. Mrs. Kaur, who lived 2 cottages down, had started locking her doors earlier than usual. And sometimes, just sometimes, when the fog rolled in thick, I would catch a fleeting shadow at the edge of my vision, a figure standing too still, watching. I brushed it off at first. Villagers are always superstitious, quick to believe in omens or spirits. But there was something different in the way that shadow moved, almost deliberate, almost human. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was paying attention to more than just the ordinary life around them. Still, days passed peacefully. We attended the weekly market, exchanging greetings and bartering for fresh produce. Evenings were spent around the hearth, sharing stories and laughter that echoed into the starry sky. I felt the security of belonging, the grounding of a routine that had carried generations before me. But beneath the laughter, beneath the warmth of the hearth and the gentle hum of the village, a silent thread of tension was weaving itself into the fabric of our lives. It was subtle, almost invisible, but I would come to realize later that it was there all along waiting for the moment when everything I believed about my home, my family, and my safety would unravel. The first sign that something was wrong came on a Thursday evening. The sky had turned a bruised shade of purple, and the wind carried an edge that made the hair on my arms stand on end. I was walking back from the river with a basket of laundry when I noticed the footprints. They weren't mine. They weren't Mira's. They led straight up to our cottage, then stopped at the front door. I froze, staring at them. For a moment, I thought it was some prank by the children from the next lane, but then I saw the deep, Deliberate indentations in the mud too heavy for a child, too precise for an animal. My heart thudded. I called for Mira, but her voice only answered faintly from inside, humming while she arranged vegetables. Nothing seemed disturbed. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Over the next few days, small things started to shift. The chickens began disappearing, one by one, from Mr. Rana's coop. Our riverbank picnic spot, usually empty, had strange objects scattered around: a torn scarf, a small stone carved into a shape I didn't recognize. And at night, I could hear whispers carried by the wind, soft murmurs that seemed almost intentional. Mira brushed it off, saying I was imagining things, but the unease had already rooted itself in my chest. Then came the letters. Simple envelopes, no names, just a single word inside each: watch. At first, I laughed nervously, convincing myself it was a mischievous villager, but the frequency grew too fast. Every morning, a new letter on the windowsill, dampened by the evening dew. My hands shook as I opened them, and each message felt colder than the last. Whoever was sending them knew where I slept, where I walked, even what I cooked for dinner. Paranoia settled in like a heavy fog. I stopped going to the market alone. I double-checked the locks on our cottage doors, even bolting the old cellar door, though it had never seemed necessary before. Every shadow in the village felt heavier, more sinister. I noticed villagers glancing at me strangely, some with concern, others with subtle smirks. Were they complicit? Were they laughing behind closed shutters? One evening, I caught a glimpse of her standing at the far edge of the mist, near the old bridge where the river curved. Her posture was relaxed, almost casual, but her gaze was fixed directly at me. I froze, the basket slipping from my hands. She disappeared as suddenly as she had appeared, leaving nothing but the damp air and the distant croak of frogs. Fear twisted deeper when Mira confronted me the next morning. "You're not sleeping again, are you?" she asked gently, though there was worry in her eyes. I wanted to tell her everything, but how could I explain the letters, the whispers, the shadows? The paranoia had begun to make sense only in fragments, half-formed connections I couldn't fully trust. Then, the threats escalated. Our little garden, once vibrant with herbs and flowers, was trampled overnight. The fence was cut in several places, as if someone wanted to test how far they could go without being seen. I caught fleeting glimpses of figures moving between cottages, faces hidden by scarves and shawls, always watching, always waiting. And all the while, the mist seemed to grow thicker, more suffocating. The village I had loved, with its rhythm and laughter, was twisting into something unfamiliar, something I didn't recognize. I started locking myself away in the cottage, peeking through curtains, listening for the faintest rustle of footsteps in the night. Sleep became impossible. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like an intruder. Every distant laugh felt like a threat. It was during one of these sleepless nights that I finally realized I wasn't just being watched. I was being studied. Every habit, every routine, every smile and step I took in the village was catalogued, noted, remembered. And whoever she was, she had patience far beyond anything I could imagine. She had been preparing for this moment all along. I didn't know what she wanted yet, but I knew this. Something was coming. Something I wasn't ready for. And when it happened, nothing would ever feel safe again. The wind howled through the village as I burst out of the cottage, heart hammering, rain soaking me to the bone. There she was, at the edge of the bridge, calm as ever, her smile sharp against the gray mist. My hands shook as I ran, splashing through the mud, adrenaline burning every nerve. "You've been following me," I shouted, my voice cracking. "Watching? Why?" She tilted her head, eyes glinting. "Following? Oh, I think you mean observing. I've been waiting for you to notice." Something inside me snapped. "This isn't a game. Leave us alone." Her laugh cut through the storm, chilling and precise. Alone? No one in this village truly belongs to themselves, not anymore. The old bridge creaked under my weight as I lunged forward. She stepped back, but not before I saw a small notebook in her hand, filled with sketches of our cottage, our routines, even my face sleeping by the hearth. My blood ran cold. You've been planning this? I whispered, horrified. I've been learning, she said softly, almost kindly. Learning what people hide, what they compare themselves to, what they fear most. A flash of lightning illuminated the river below, and I finally understood. The whispers, the letters, the shadows, they weren't just threats. They were warnings. Warnings meant to teach, to unmask, to confront every insecurity I had buried behind the cozy life of the village. I froze, staring at her. She smiled again, enigmatic, almost triumphant. And then she stepped back into the mist, disappearing as silently as she had arrived, leaving only the notebook at my feet and the pounding rain around me. I collapsed onto the bridge, drenched, shaking, and realized something I had ignored for far too long. The comparison, the doubt, the fear. It wasn't coming from her. It was coming from me. The rain slowed, turning into a soft drizzle as I sat on the edge of the bridge, staring at the notebook. Every page was meticulous, every sketch precise. At first, I felt rage. How dare she invade our home, our lives, but slowly, a creeping realization began to settle in. These weren't just observations. They were reflections of our fears, of the insecurities we carried quietly, comparing ourselves to others, measuring worth by what we thought we lacked. I carried the notebook back to the cottage. Mira was waiting, eyes wide, half relieved, half fearful. "What happened?" she asked. I showed her the sketches, the notes, the meticulous details. She read quietly, then shook her head. "She didn't want to hurt us," she said softly. "She wanted to show you you're fighting the wrong battles." Over the next days, the village seemed different. Shadows still lingered. Whispers still floated on the wind, but they no longer held the same weight. The notebook stayed on the table, a strange talisman of revelation. We began to notice other villagers more clearly, how they laughed, how they fretted over small things, how they struggled silently. It was like the tension that had held us all captive had lifted slightly, replaced by awareness. I found myself walking the village again, watching children play without envy, speaking to neighbors without judgment. The fear that had gripped me was fading, replaced by something far heavier and far more liberating. Understanding. Comparing ourselves to anyone else, letting shadows dictate our lives, that was the true danger. Not the watcher, not the letters, not the whispers. That danger had been inside me all along. Even Mr. Rana noticed it. One evening, as I helped him carry a basket of eggs, he chuckled. "Funny, isn't it? How a little fear makes the world feel bigger than it is." I nodded, thinking about the bridge, the mist, the woman with the notebook. She had disappeared, but she had left a mark that no rain could wash away. Weeks later, the village returned to its rhythm. The river gurgled lazily. Chickens wandered the yards, and the mist still curled around the hills in the morning. But I was different. I no longer measured my life against others, no longer let whispers and shadows dictate my choices. And yet, sometimes, just sometimes, I thought I saw her at the edge of the forest, a faint silhouette vanishing into the trees, not threatening, just watching, not judging, just reminding. We rebuilt our garden. We laughed more freely, slept more soundly, and let the cozy, simple life of the village embrace us again. Mira would tease me if I lingered too long at the windows, and I would smile, remembering the notebook, the bridge, the storm. We had survived fear, yes, but more importantly, we had survived ourselves. And I realized something I had never understood before. Life was not about matching anyone else's steps. their successes or their smiles. Life was about walking your own path, even when the fog rolled in, even when shadows appeared at the edge of your vision. The notebook remained on the table, but I never opened it again. Its lesson was already written in my mind, etched into the rhythm of my days, in the laughter of the children, in the warmth of our cottage. I stepped outside one morning, breathing in the crisp air, feeling the sun warm my face. The village was alive, ordinary, perfect in its simplicity. And for the first time in my life, I didn't compare. I simply lived. And that, I realized, was freedom.